Welcome to Fear and Greed Sunday feature. I'm Michael Thompson and hello, Adam Lane.
Hello, Michael.
Now, Adam, I don't know how I necessarily feel about this. I have relinquished control entirely this week and you have made the choice for our Sunday listening. So I say with a certain amount of trepidation, what have you picked out for us?
Oh, Michael, I'm grateful that you've given me control this week. It's a really important one this Sunday. I think last week we were reminded with Are You OK Day. It happens every September and it's a really good initiative. I was reminded of an interview that we did last year with Gus Worland from Gotcha for Life. Now, I used to work with Gus at Triple M. He is a champion bloke and he started this foundation, Gotcha for Life, and it does incredibly important work. And, Michael, I'm sure you remember the stats at the time, and unfortunately they haven't really changed, is that by the time you listen to this interview coming up, 37 people will attempt to commit suicide in Australia. That's one every 28 seconds. And it is a desperately concerning statistic. So I thought, in line with Are You OK Day and this great interview, Gus Worland from Gotcha for Life would be great to listen to. Really think about it in this way. Think about Are You OK Day. Think about Gotcha for Life. Make sure that you're okay. And then communicate with a friend. Get in touch with someone that you care about and just tell them exactly that. Tell them that you care about them and make sure they're okay too. So I hope you really enjoy this interview with Gus Worland.
All right, sounds good to me. Let's get into it. Here is the Sunday feature.
Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. Something a bit different today. Last year we talked a bit about a new campaign to raise awareness for men's mental health. If you haven't seen the video of Boys Do Cry, a reworked version of Boys Don't Cry by The Cure, I'd highly recommend it. It's very, very powerful. The campaign was developed by a number of organisations, one of them being mental fitness foundation Gotcha for Life. The founder of Gotcha for Life is TV and radio presenter Gus Worland. Gus, welcome to Fear and Greed.
G'day, Sean.
Now, the statistics around suicide in Australia are horrifying. It's a leading cause of death in Australians between 15 and 44. 9 Australians take their own life every day. The main mission of Gotcha for Life is to end suicide. And for you, the motivation for starting the foundation was very personal.
Yeah, absolutely. A friend of mine who, sort of superheroes don't always need to wear capes. And this bloke was certainly like that for me. He was my cousin's husband. I absolutely adored him. My father had left the family home when I was quite young. So he sort of took over that role of sort of dad and big brother and someone that I could talk to about everything. And I just adored him. And he took his life on the day that his third and final child finished their HSC. And it really rocked me for many, many years. And at the time I was on breakfast radio on Triple M, and eventually one morning I spoke about it. I opened up and I led with some vulnerability. And the moment I did that, I felt better about myself. And I was lucky enough to then have someone in the car driving their sons to school who listened to it. And she had just won a bursary from Movember to do some type of media campaign around masculinity in this country and suicide prevention. And we then got together and did the show Man Up. And that really was my journey on why my friend had taken his own life, a bloke that seemed to have everything, status inside, outside of work, good looking, family man, lots of friends, no financial troubles. And he decided to end his life on the day that, as I said, his third child finished their HSC. And I never quite got over it. I still worry about it today and worry what I could have done. And anyway, I decided to do the Man Up program. Then after that, Gotcha for Life started. And now I've dedicated my life to suicide prevention through education and getting that suicide rate down to zero. Because as you said, 7 men every day, 2 women every day. Plus the stat you didn't mention, Sean, was 65,000 people attempt suicide in Australia every year, which is 1 every 28 seconds. So wow. We've been chatting now for only about 3 minutes. Well, 6 people have phoned the ambulance in this country since you started chatting to say, can you please save me? So we've got a massive issue and we need to deal with it the best we possibly can. And that's what Gotcha for Life was built for.
Why are there more men committing suicide than women?
Well, firstly, they're more risk-taking, so they tend to do it in a way that it won't fail. That's one thing. Secondly, we're more likely to do it because we don't have that support network around us to actually talk to or feel that we can talk to, because we've been told all our lives to live up to a stereotype, which is all about just get on with it. Don't bother people with your own dramas. Everyone's got dramas. Just man up, take a teaspoon of cement and harden the you-know-what up.
Yep.
It's a very difficult thing to unlearn that type of behaviour, and men are taught that right from the start of their lives. I think it's definitely getting better. My son's 22 and he's more likely now to talk about his feelings than I ever was. And my father, I'm still trying to get an I love you out of him, and he's in his mid-80s. So, and his father, my grandfather, was very much even more the same. So we're slowly getting there. It's a generational thing, but it's like turning around the QE2. It's going to take time, but as long as we're turning, we'll get there.
Okay, so mental health is such a major issue, and it's certainly coming to the forefront of debate, though it's probably not quite where it should be yet. Think about the crisis in the Australian Parliament at the moment. Brittany Higgins and Grace Tame a couple of days ago talking at the National Press Club about not exactly suicide, but certainly mental health issues and trauma as a result of abuse and incredibly poor behaviour. How does it all work? Does it all work together? Like, how do we as a society somehow address this stuff?
Yeah, it's so big. You're right, Sean. It's a very, very difficult thing to look at if you look at the whole big thing. So what I tend to do is try to make it as simple as possible. And for you and your listeners to go, you know what? Mental health is a huge issue. Let's call it mental fitness. That's the first thing I'd like to change, because mental fitness makes you think it's a bit like your physical fitness. It's something that you can work on. It's not someone else's issue. We might have to work on it more than the person next door, but we're all working on something to make ourselves better and more fit, whether it's physical or mental. So let's normalize the conversation by calling it mental fitness. That's point number one. Point number two then is to go, you know what? If you look at the world problem, the global issues, and then Australia's issues, it's just too big. So let's look after our own backyard. And what I talk to with corporates now is looking after your own village. And that is literally getting a pen and paper, not a laptop, not a computer, not a iPhone or anything like that. Get a pen and paper and write down a list of the people that you love and adore that you cannot imagine living without. That is your village. Then go to work with that village and let them know how much you love them. Lead with vulnerability. Tell them how you feel about them. Tell them why you admire them. Tell them why you're in the village. Open up a conversation that is a little bit out of control, one that we're not normally used to, one that you're going to have to muscle down with at times or sit in some vulnerable silence. But they're the moments. So if you just look after the people that we love and adore, then that starts a relationship or a set of people that love each other at a much deeper level, kinder to each other. And that means that we probably won't worry alone. And worrying alone, I think, is the most important thing, Sean, because us blokes, we make decisions in our own heads without verbalizing. We can make some really poor decisions. So it's all about building your village, letting them know that it's all right to have conversations of gravity outside of banter. And then once you've got that relationship set up, and it takes time to do it, it's a bit like physical fitness. You have to keep going back to the gym. You need to keep going back to the conversation, but you will eventually get there. And that's what I've done over the last 5 years. And I think if you ask my wife, my friends, my children, I'm a much better person, much better at those roles than I ever was, by being vulnerable and just saying, you know what, I haven't swallowed the map here. I've got a lot of learning to do, and letting them know that I just love them and can you go on this journey with me? We need more of that. It doesn't mean we're not resilient. It doesn't mean we don't step up to the mark, and it doesn't mean that we have vulnerable conversations or burst into tears every 5 minutes. It just means at the right time, we can set the right scene to have the right conversations. And we're not having enough of those in Australia. So don't look at it as a big, huge issue. Just look at it as if, you know what, I'm just going to look after my own village. Write that village down. I started with a list, Sean, of about 15 people. I've got it down to 9 now. Wow. There's 9 people that I check in with every single day, and they know that they can come to me with absolutely any problem. It doesn't mean that I can fix it, but it means that I can be part of their team in getting through the type of, you know what, that life throws at us.
It's actually quite difficult. You mentioned the other guys on the Fear and Greed team, Michael Thompson, who does a regular show with us, Adam Lang, who does the Sunday show. I know those guys so well, and I admire both of them for who they are as individuals, their professionalism, but it's still hard for me to be vulnerable to them, to not make a quip about what one of them's doing, or like it's actually hard as a man to be vulnerable.
It is, absolutely. That's why we have to work at it. That's why you need to get more mentally fit. That's why you have to go to some workshops. You need to go and listen to a podcast. You need to go and get a book. You need to go and start having some vulnerable conversations, which are a struggle. I mean, Sean, you can talk. It's obvious. You are talking. You're intelligent. You know what you're talking about. You might have a conversation where the words are stuck somewhere in your guts and you can't quite get the words out. And then you start crying and then the snot starts running out of your nose. You know what I mean? These are uncomfortable positions and blokes hate to be out of control.
Yep.
We hate to feel as if we haven't got our you-know-what together.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, you're going to have to go. It's like that first gym session after not going for a year or whatever.
Ouch.
You are
That's
going to
hard.
hurt. You're going to have to go to the physio afterwards. You're going to hate your personal trainer. You're going to ache the next couple of days. Well, you know what? It's going to be easier in a month if you keep going. It'll be easier in 6 months if you keep going. And if you show your leadership to your children and all of a sudden they look at dad and go, you know what? That's what it takes to be a man. I want a bit of that rather than, you know what, dad's always seems to have his you know what together. Sean, I had a wonderful conversation through the Man Up filming with my son, Jack. And I said to him, Jack, I just want to tell you something. I don't have the answers to everything you ask me, but I try my best with a bit of experience, a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of common sense. I try to come up with the right response. But most of the time I'm BSing you. And he looked at me and goes, what do you mean? I go, well, blokes don't have all the answers. And it was a huge relief to him.
Yeah.
It was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm not going to have all the answers when I'm 18. When I start learning to drive, start having a drink, need to have a vote, I don't have to have all the answers. I go, no, mate, we're all making it up as we go along here and we're just doing the best we can.
Yep.
And it was a huge relief to him. And I think all parents and dads in particular need to show that vulnerability to their own family. So it just takes the pressure off their own kids.
Stay with me, Gus. We'll be back in a minute. My guest this morning is Gus Worland, radio and TV presenter and the founder of Gotcha for Life. So what does Gotcha for Life need? Your name is often mentioned with Hugh Jackman's name. You were school friends. You've been close ever since. He's on the advisory board.
Yeah.
Clearly, star power helps.
Oh.
What about corporate backing?
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, the most important thing, Sean, is having money so I can give it to facilitators who then go out to sports clubs, corporations, schools, whoever needs it,
Yep.
and actually goes and presents the workshops. That's the absolute key. So it's really quite raw, whatever fundraising we do, and people are wonderful to us. So we've got a couple of hundred community events going on at any one time. We had a bloke barefoot walk from Cairns to Sydney and raised 100 grand. We've got a lady at the moment who is in a kayak that is working her way around the entire country of Australia, and she's raising money. I've got a lady who's about to swim the English Channel between England and France. She's got fundraisers and so forth. We just had 4 boys from a couple of different private schools in Sydney just row across the Atlantic. I mean,
Wow.
That's happening all the time. But without people like Sean Partners, who have been a great support, without Chemist Warehouse, who have been with me right from day one, they give us a month of June where there's a certain amount of products that go into Chemist Warehouse and 5% or $5 might come to us. They've given us $1 million one year, $650,000 another. It's amazing. And we've given $7 million away now to people that work in suicide prevention. But I only want to get bigger because I want to get more facilitators out there. More facilitators mean more people get the workshops, more people will get mentally fit, and more people will then stop thinking about suicide. And as you said off the top, Sean, it's all about 0 suicides. One's too many. So for me, anyone listening who would like to support us with a fundraiser or would just like to meet me to talk about our vision and go through exactly what our thoughts are and then back us as a corporate, absolutely, that's what it's all about. It's a bit crude to say it that way, but really that's what it's all about.
Do you have a sense, Gus, of how many people you've helped or saved?
Well, I get about 1,000 messages a day, Sean, to my messenger or through my socials, and I can't get hold and back to most of them because it's just too many people. It's 30,000 people a month if you look at it that way.
Yep.
So what I tend to do is when people come up to me in the street, and I've been so fortunate that that's happened a few times. One in particular, I was running the half marathon as part of me getting ready for a run that I had done after the New York Marathon. And as you probably know me, Sean, I don't look like a runner. I'm not a very good runner. So
no, but you did very well with that. You did a great job becoming a runner.
I was the back of the pack, there's no doubt. I was with a few mates and they were helping me, and it was freezing cold down in Canberra. and this bloke buzzed past us the other way. So he'd gone to the turning point and was running back into Canberra, and he said, "Gus, you saved my life. I love you, brother," like that. And I was like, what did that guy say? And one of my mates said, I think he said, "You saved his life." I went, "Oh, wow, I wonder what that was all about." Anyway, I got to the turning point. I then ran back into Canberra, and there this poor bloke was. He's 60 kilos wringing wet. He had one of those silver sheets around him, and he was nibbling on a banana and a muesli bar. And he goes, "Mighty hell, I've been waiting for you for like an hour." I said, "Sorry, mate, I've only got one pace." And he said, "Look, I just want to tell you the story of what I meant when I said that." And it's actually quite emotional, Sean, to talk about this, because he said to me, "I planned to kill myself on this particular evening, and I thought I'd just go and see my mum and dad." And they lived in Belrose on the northern beaches of Sydney. And he said, "I just knocked on the door, and Dad sort of answered the door, and he went, 'What are you doing here?' And he goes, 'Oh, I just thought I'd pop in for a cup of tea.' And they were watching Man Up, and it was paused, and they all sat down with a cuppa, and eventually they turned the show back on again. And they listened and they watched. And he said, I never would have watched the ABC. He said, I haven't had the ABC on for ever that he can remember, certainly since he moved out of home, and he was in his 40s now. So he just listened to the Man Up program, and he said, you know what? This is not going to be my farewell to my mum and dad. I'm actually going to come back and watch the show next Wednesday. And he made a bit of a date with his mum and dad that he'd come back and have dinner next Wednesday. And he did that the next 2 Wednesdays. And he then decided not to take his life because something just triggered in him with the stuff that he had heard on the show. And he actually had bought a rope at Bunnings, and he took the rope back to Bunnings and got his money back, which he was very happy about, it was so funny that the show had saved his life, but he seemed to be more excited about getting his money back
Symbolic.
Because it was within 21 days of buying it. Anyway, that's just that Aussie sense of humour, I suppose. And he took the rope back, he got his money back, and then he just remembered that he was actually quite a good runner, and that actually used to make him feel good. But he was so depressed, he was so focused and narrow-minded on destruction that he had actually forgotten about the things that had actually made him happy in his life. So he started running again, and that just gave him his physical change, and the running and what was happening with athletics and the physical move made him feel better. Then he decided to have the guts to go and talk to a mate about how he felt. And then his mate went, well, I feel the same way. This is a bloke that I went and saw. And so he went and saw him, and there was a connection with him and the counsellor. Now he's up and about again. Like he's just, he has a process in place every day where he just gets on with it. So we could have lost another one. And I've had maybe a couple of hundred people say to me on, Messenger and Facebook and that sort of stuff that I saved their life. But I've never had someone literally say it to my face like he did that day. And my mates were all around. He told the story, and we drove back to Sydney, and that's all we could talk about, of course. And, Sean, that makes that makes all the hard work.
That is a beautiful story.
Yeah, it is. And of course, I know we can't save them all. And like you say, we lose 7 a day, men and 2 women. But we did have a 5% decrease last year, but we still lost over 3,000. So we've got a long way to go, but we are getting there.
Gus, keep doing what you're doing.
I will, Sean. There's no doubt about that. I've never been more focused. I never get tired when I do Gotcha for Life work. I do doing the other work that I have in my life, but Gotcha for Life seems to, I suppose if you create something yourself and you see that it's going in a good direction, you've got that much power and energy, you just keep going.
Gus, thanks for talking to Fear and Greed.
Oh, Sean, absolutely my pleasure, and all the best to Michael and Adam as well, mate. All the best.
That was Gus Worland, radio and TV presenter and the founder of Gotcha for Life. This is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. Join me every morning for the full Fear and Greed podcast with all the business news you need to know. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.